Thanks for tuning in to Digital PR Explained. Today, I'm joined by Yael Fraynd, the president and owner of YaYa Publicity, a PR agency that specializes in representing jewelry brands. Yael works closely with clients, editors, and influencers, and some of the most in-demand styling teams in the industry, which we'll get into soon. I'm very excited to get into the story that Yael shared with me. We're going to talk about how, basically, in a nutshell, her team helped place a high jewelry brand on Kendrick Lamar during the Super Bowl halftime show. And this wasn't something that was months in the making. It was more of a last minute opportunity that could have completely fallen apart without the right relationship in place. And I think that the story perfectly captures why relationships are the true currency of PR. And without further ado, Yael, welcome to Digital PR Explained.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am definitely excited, to be speaking with you and kind of sharing such a, I would say, career highlight. It's something that I will always kind of remember, and it'll be something that will be very hard to ever replicate again, unless it's another Super Bowl halftime show, which hopefully we will have more of those. But this was definitely a great experience, and it was such a momentous one, at least from we're a small team. So being able to create such an amazing opportunity for one of our clients was definitely a top, moment for us.
Yeah. Well, why don't you take us back to that Thursday night of Super Bowl weekend? You mentioned that you got an urgent text from Kendrick Lamar's stylist asking for brooches. What was going through your mind in that moment?
So it was actually one of my colleagues. A lot of the stylists that we work with is through text. Of course, email is kind of how you start, but then when you start creating these relationships, you end up on text because at the end of the day, it's like you need something urgent. They know they can text us and we'll make it happen. Also, a plus usually is that our cutoff time from New York City is at 9 o'clock for FedEx. So they know they can write us at pretty much a late hour and we'll be able to make things happen. It was Thursday and it was already almost like 7 o'clock. So a lot of our teams that are in Florida or whatever it may be, kind of were already done for shipping. Actually, it was a little bit later. I'm sorry. It was about 9 o'clock. And she was like, hey, like, do you have any brooches? We're looking to possibly put something on, Kendrick's hat or something. We have like this vision. And at the time, some of our clients that we had in mind were already cut off because they were in LA and their shipping cutoff is actually a lot, earlier than ours. And we're like, listen, we'll circle back on Friday. We'll circle back in the morning. We're trying to see like what we can, pitch for this, what items we can show. So Friday morning rolls around. We send them some options that we have. And in the back of our heads, it's very, what are the odds of actually this working out? We're living such a time where a lot of things are paid. A lot of brands will be offering money. It's such a momentous moment for any client. But I still always like to, come through and deliver in every aspect. So we actually sent, a box from New York and then our client from LA, which is Rahamanov, and they're a fine jewelry, more high jewelry, I would say. And we both sent out shipments and it was going obviously for, to the team. And that weekend, the weather was a little off. And sometimes FedEx and UPS, we have trouble with them. So one of the boxes actually never made it and the box from LA did. Still, the client also kind of had that idea in her head that the odds of this happening are just so slim. But you know what? We'll send it and, pray for the best. So we, checked with the team. They received the one box. We're like, great. Our other clients were a little bit bummed that, their boxes, did not make it in time, but it is what it is. And again, we're like, there's always other opportunities. Again, this was such a dream that this was actually going to work out. And how it works is many times we don't even know if it's going to work out until the actual moment. So the team confirmed they received it and then we kind of let it go. We also don't like to hound and say like, hey, how's the fitting going? We really try to back off, let them do their thing. And I think that is something that the teams and stylists and editors really do appreciate because it's not like we send something and we're so on top of them that we're like bothering them, like, do your thing. If it works, amazing. If it doesn't, I'm very about the idea, thank you for the opportunity for letting us even submit it. So, Saturday, then Sunday comes around and we're watching the Super Bowl. And I remember, the client was like, hey, do we know anything? And I was like, honestly, I don't know anything. And that was it. So we're watching the Super Bowl and then comes a halftime show. And I remember like it was yesterday, I was with my husband and my children and we were like watching the big screen. And Kendrick comes out, and I remember, I remember that I knew I had to look for his hat because I did know that that was kind of the request of what we were sitting for. And I see this like glimmer shine, and I was like, wait. I'm like, I really think that that is ours. And I like pulled out the picture on my phone, and I like had to ask my husband. I remember asking my 12-year-old son, I'm like, does this look like this? He's like, yeah, that is that. And it was like this crazy feeling because I was like, oh my God, it was like front and center in his hat. It was like just this crazy feeling. I remember I called my client. I'm like, oh my God, did you see? And he's like, wait, what? And he like couldn't believe it either. And even his daughter, who's actually my marketing liaison, she like did not realize until someone texted her. She was like, wait, that is your brooch on like Kendrick Lamar. And she like freaked out. And I remember like saying, this is the craziest experience. Like I remember texting like my family, like friends and stylists that I've worked with also in the past are like, wait, I know this brooch. Is he wearing Rachmaninoff? And I was like, yes. And the feeling is something that it was just such an exciting feeling, but it was also something to be so proud from like my team. And it was just such a wow moment that, we really are a small team. We really are such a boutique agency. And I've always said like, we're small but mighty. And like, this was something that really cemented that. There's few opportunities and there's few moments. We deal with celebrities all the time. We deal with amazing editorial, incredible books, but there's very few moments in a PR industry, like in this time, that really will stand out and will kind of go down as one of these moments that will be almost impossible to ever replicate. And that is just something that, you don't really get every day. When you think about the viewership, like it was all eyes, on this halftime show. It's everyone is watching this, and it's just incredible just to know the viewership and everything that came after that. It's like what I explained to the client. I'm like, not only were all eyes, on Kendrick Lamar during this halftime show, because it's really just the metrics for it, but it's everything that followed, all the press that followed, everything that we can really capture from it, and all the articles that came. It was really just this snowball effect, and it was a week long's worth of like incredible PR moments. Like it truly made me feel happy as to why I do what I do, and able to show these results to the client is really something special.
I really want to pick your brain about the domino effect that happened after the Super Bowl halftime show because that's also exciting. I can't wait to hear
Yeah,
what unfolded. But I also want to just pause here and acknowledge that I love that you're honest about all of this, the whole process with your clients, and how, like, you can send pieces, but there's no guarantee that they'll make it into the final look. Can you talk more about how you approach those conversations and set expectations?
of course. From the beginning, even from inception of like having the first conversation with a potential client, I always am upfront. I never like to overpromise and underdeliver, but I always have to set the expectations because in PR, nothing is ever guaranteed. I always say that we sell something that is so hard because I can't tell you, okay, tomorrow you're going to see X, Y, and Z. It doesn't work like that. And you have to really kind of go into this with the faith that based on our relationships that we're going to be able to deliver for you. So from the beginning, I say, listen, we send, let's say 100 times, maybe like 40 of those will work, but I will make sure that they are a great moment for you and that it's really worth it. But at the same time, like my clients know, and like I said, I think setting expectations is probably the most important part of PR into building a relationship with your client. You kind of want to set those ground rules because if they feel that they're just sending and sending and nothing is working out and they get disheartened, they have to understand that you have to submit in order for it to work. I'm like, you definitely won't make the final cut if we don't send. And ultimately it comes down to so many things. With this experience, it came down to the relationship and it's just being the right fit, the right look, and it's just the same for editorial. It comes out to fitting on the page, to being on the cover. You're sending along with so many other brands. So when it does work, it gives you this incredible feeling that like, wow, like you worked, despite being in front of so many different options and so many incredible brands.
Yeah. Okay. And for those who are not in this particular industry, I have a lot of listeners that are in all sorts of industries like crisis comms and B2B, like way outside of fashion and jewelry. and even products sometimes. Can you shed more light on like what happens if the product, isn't used, or even if it is used, do you tend to get that product back?
Yes. So specifically with jewelry, because a lot of the brands we do work with are fine jewelry brands, but even if not, our goal is to always be working on a loan basis. So everything that we like loan to a stylist, loan for an editorial is on the, pretext that we're going to get it back. We send paperwork, there's LORs that are signed, because we want to make sure that our clients aren't just gifting away. Now, there are opportunities where a client is such a fan of someone and they've given them such an incredible moment or whatnot. And then that's something that maybe they're like, okay, we'd like to gift them something as a token of our appreciation for the support. But overall, everything we do is typically loaned and everything is returned.
Okay, got it. And before we get into the what happened after the Super Bowl and all of the amazing wins that came from just that moment, I do also want to pick your brain about relationship building, being trusted and being top of mind, which was key to what the outcome of this situation, right? And making it easy for stylists to work with you and your team. How do you intentionally cultivate those relationships in a way that leads to wins like this?
So, I started my company a very long time ago. And one thing that always was important is communication, but also the relationships. And throughout the years, I don't treat this as business. It's not. I genuinely, and like a lot of these relationships that I've built have become friends of mine. I speak to them a lot on a daily basis, and I feel that the same way that we're constantly sending products, even though they know that it's not always going to work, like it's a mutual respect, because the same way that I need them, they also need us. And so they know that no matter what, like we really drop anything to make it work at any time. Like sometimes I'm even having my husband do drop offs for me because, like we can't be everywhere. And I'm like, okay, like it'll be a Saturday, it'll be a Sunday, it'll be like 8 a.m. And we make sure that any request we fulfill. And, to that extent, I think it's also really important is, sometimes these stylists have, A-list clients. And it's not only about working with their A-list clients. I always try to support, stylists who are just, working with someone who's up and coming, because you know what, like I'm trying to help them as well. They're also helping me. And I think that to really build that relationship, you have to help them with all their clients. I don't like to pick and choose of only like this like top tier, because I think someone that is just starting will eventually get there. And actually I have a kind of like a great kind of example for that. Chapel Roan, I don't know if you're familiar with her,
Oh my
but
gosh, yeah, of course.
and this has nothing to do with the Super Bowl, but it does go back to kind of relationships. And Chapel, when she was just starting, nobody was really loaning to her because no one really knew who she was. She was like this up and coming, awesome girl singing. And the stylist and we would always loan. We would always send, like even at the beginning as she was really growing with her client. And I remember like I posted it and stylists were just like, this is an incredible moment as to why this PR company is so great, because they work with people before they're at the level of being so big. And I think that is something really important, as a PR agency, as someone who's representing brands, is to work with the team and work with people when they're also growing, not only when they're at the top, because honestly, like you never know when someone starts from here and where they're going to end up going. And so I think that is something really valuable that I have learned over my years, that I really work with everyone. I rarely say no unless the image is just not right for the client. And because I do have so many brands, I do have something for everyone.
I'm so happy you shared that. Well, let me just pause here too. You mentioned, I think, a huge component about why you're so successful and why people like working with you is because clearly you are reliable. You go to work even on the weekends, right? And I'm happy you mentioned that you work with, I guess, the smaller people, because that's kind of been a theme that's come up again and again and again in almost every single episode of this podcast in different ways, though. It translates across industries. I like to support and mention that journalists or PRs should not overlook the journalists and editors and publishers of your local trade publication or your local lifestyle publication. Like
100%.
We're both, fun fact, from Florida. We just found that out. And Boca Raton magazine. I'm sure you've probably worked with them.
Yes.
And they're like, not Cosmo, they're not Elle magazine, they're not Vogue, but
No, but they still
like,
have a huge reach. And I honestly,
yeah,
like, I don't discriminate based on that because I do think that every publication or every client or everything has their own segment and has their own reach of people. And I think that there is some value. And I don't, discard that at all.
absolutely. And I would argue more people in that, like, you're going to get probably more sales from something like Boca Raton magazine. I mean, it's um, uh, like people who read that magazine are dedicated to that magazine, I'm assuming, and they're in tune with the fashions that are trending in that particular locality or that region. And that's going to apply more to the interest of those readers. And in turn, bring them on or introduce them to new brands that they think they should be following, and they're going to want to go out
Absolutely.
and buy. So I'm so happy you mentioned that. And now that we've talked about that, let's talk about, though, I mean, the whole point of this conversation was, though, to talk about this huge win that you've gotten, because that's a really cool thing to talk about still, too, right? It's a huge
Yes,
highlight.
100%.
Any PR would be like thrilled to have this. This is a dream win. So tell us about the domino effect, like the PR wins that came from the Super Bowl, feature or this highlight that you set up. Talk more about that.
Yes. So I remember speaking, to my client the next morning, and he's like, "Wow, like I'm starting to understand why this is such a big deal." I think at first he didn't quite grasp how big of an opportunity and how big of this, moment for the brand it was. And then when you just start getting all these editorials from like GQ, Vogue, Harper's, Elle, the trade publications, which are really important to this client, just writing about how men with brooches, the diamonds, like it really was able to probably bring about press in a matter of 24 hours, equivalent to like what people achieve in like years. That next morning they got a call from like their local, like from LA. I forgot which TV segment, but it was about like I forgot which one. It was NBC, and it was affiliated with NBC or something of that sort. And they wanted to come into the office and interview them, like to talk about this
Wow.
opportunity. Yeah, and so he was like, "Okay, I understand it now." Like he's like, "I didn't realize it was such a big deal," but like people were calling him like when they posted on their social media. I mean, the engagement that they got just from their posts, from their stores, from their customers, and the calls that they received. He's like, wow, like he got it. It took a day to like really kind of let it like sink in. And then just seeing every single clip that I would send them of all these mentions that we were able to secure was incredible. We got over like 40, hits like from strong editorials, not including TV mentions, and just not including like style in terms of like outfit wears, outfit IDs. So it really was a great success just in that sense as well, from just the media outreach, the circulation that it received. And, it's just in dollars, I don't even think that you'd be able to equate to what that was.
Yeah, I mean, were you so I'm curious too, like, did you have to do any media training with your client after all of this happened? Like, were they prepared for that moment, do you think?
I remember Melanie, who is my, the marketing liaison, and she was like very nervous because it was like they wanted to come to the office right away to come and do this interview. And, and so I prepped and, we prepped, I asked like what questions they were going to ask. And so we did just some, answer prepping in that sense, just so that she felt a little more comfortable. But they really are they're a family business, and they all very like speak very well, and I wasn't concerned, like there are certain clients that I felt like I would have to be more hands-on, but I knew that they were going to be fine. But yes, and I also do want to say, it is a team effort, and something that I really do want to put an emphasis on it, that I do value my team, because I think it's a teamwork. We were able to achieve this in together. We have, some of my team that focuses on the celebrity part, which was like really making sure that the Kendrick Lamar happened. And then I have my team that is focusing on the editorial side, who made sure that everything was credited and that we were able to really get all those hits and make sure that the brand was everywhere. And so I really, I will never take part saying that it was all me, because it really wasn't. And I really do feel that it's my team that really made this all come together.
Yeah, and you should be proud. I mean, just as somebody who's leading that team, it also says a lot about the person leading the charge too. So
Yes, thank
yes,
you.
definitely a teamwork, team effort, but yeah, what a moment. What a
But
moment.
it's going back, it is relationships, like there's nothing that makes me happier than receiving a text from a stylist saying like your team is incredible. Like you have
Yeah.
so, and I get that a lot. I get a lot of times a stylist will be like, listen, your team is so on it. They really like will do anything at any time and they're appreciative and that makes me like there's nothing more as a business owner that I could ask for. To me, there's nothing better than to know that my team is really on it and that they are leaving a great impression on people that make our successes.
Well, I could pick your brain about all of that for another hour, yeah, but I that's really cool. It's really neat to hear too that you get that kind of feedback, and I think that speaks volumes about the just the company and like your how your relationship building values bleed into what you're building internally too. So that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
No, thank you for being interested in. I'm happy to be able to share that.